Yes, welcome into the Mott and Bailey Basement Bar, and welcome back to Straight to the Chase here on the Fantasy Baseball Advice Network. I hope everybody had a great Memorial Day weekend. Hope it was filled with fun and family, and also some reflection on the true meaning of the holiday. But I am your host, Chase Thornton. It is week 9 of the fantasy baseball season, and today we're going to take a look back at significant injuries from this previous week around the league. We'll also talk about who's been hot lately. We'll take a look ahead at the week to come. We'll give you some two-start pitchers to think about, streaming matchups to exploit, all kinds of fun. Before we get started, I want to remind you to hit like and subscribe and make sure you're getting notifications whenever we drop new content here so we can continue to help you chase greatness all season long and dominate your league mates. And you can find past episodes of Straight to the Chase wherever you get your podcasts, so be sure to download us on your favorite podcast app. And now, let's crack a beverage and let's get straight to the chase, shall we? Now, leading off, let's look at some of the injury news from last week. First off, Houston Astros second baseman Jose Altuve placed on the injured list on Monday, May 18th with a mild left oblique strain. Now, if you've been paying attention, and if you've listened to me, I'm not so sure there is such a thing as a mild oblique injury, quote unquote, in baseball. But in the good news category, I guess, Altuve is expected to start swinging a bat here in the next day or so, according to his manager, Joe Espada. And that would be good news for those of you who took him as the number 7 second baseman overall at pick number 100. Okay. Now, he hadn't been great this season, even when he was healthy so far. So, I mean, his K rate would be a career high if it holds for the rest of this season. His power numbers are down. He's only slugging 380. And that's a lot. That's a lot lower than he was last. That's like 40 some points, I think, lower than last season. If you look at his underlying numbers, it's not overly encouraging for Jose Altuve. Okay. Keep in mind now, the dude's 36 years old. Okay. Decline's bound to happen at some point. I mean, I'll raise my hand on this first one to attest to that. But even though, he's making good contact. I mean, his hard hit percentage before the injury this year, his hard hit percentage was actually at a career high, of his entire career. And Jose Altuve has made pretty good contact in his career. He's been a good hitter, but he's kind of been pounding it at the ground, and he's been pounding it right at people. His career launch angle is around 12.5 degrees or so. This season, before the injury, it was only at 8.3 degrees. Okay. And that would be by far a career low. It'd be a career low by over a degree, I think. And you combine that with a declining speed score. I mean, he's getting older and he's battling injuries. He's not quite as fast this year. But you combine all that together, and he's just not doing things that equate to the kind of batting average and kind of power production that we've been used to from Jose Altuve. Now, it is Altuve, okay? And he's still a major cog in that Houston lineup. But for a team that's performed pretty well in spite of him, it would be really nice to see him approach his career form in any way, shape, or form. Because if that could happen, I mean, we could see some real nice points on the board as fantasy managers. Hang on to him. I think better things are coming from the diminutive All-Star, but it's rough right now. Is supposed to start swinging a bat here this week, though. Rangers not second baseman, shortstop Corey Seager hasn't played since May 13th. He's currently on the 10-day disabled list for Texas, but was reported this week that Seager probably won't be reevaluated for another week or so. And that's according to Sean McFarland of the Dallas Morning News. Now, he's dealing with a lower back thing. And unfortunately, he was supposed to face live pitching this past weekend, but that had to be scrapped. Not good, right? So, I mean, you're going to have to keep rolling with your plan B for now. Seager was the 11th shortstop off the board this spring. Okay. So he was drafted as a starter, a low end starter, but a starter nonetheless. But, kind of like Altuve, he's been a bit of a disappointment, performance wise. His K rate, I mean, compared to Jose Altuve, again, is way up. His slugging is way down. So again, similar. He's still barreling the ball up. He's still making decent contact. But if you look at Corey Seager's numbers, he's been really unlucky on balls in play. His BABIP is way down under his career average. So if you're hoping for better from him, I think some positive regression is in order to some extent, but that back injury has him laid up, and it's going to be something to watch there. Sticking around in Texas there, heading back to the Astros, Yordan Alvarez was pulled early Saturday, and he missed Sunday's game, but the team reported that the Sunday thing was a scheduled day off, had nothing to do with why he was pulled Saturday. Now, they have him listed right now as day-to-day from back spasms, but it doesn't sound too serious, which is good. Yordan Alvarez, you drafted him as a top outfielder. You're counting on him as an anchor in your lineup, and he should be able to continue as such. But keep an eye on it because, again, we talked about it just now with Corey Seager. If it's a back thing, those can be tricky. Likewise, Vladimir Guerrero was pulled on Sunday after he got hit by a pitch on the inside of his right elbow. Now, x-rays came back good, and they have him listed as day-to-day, but again, it doesn't appear too serious. He was the number one first baseman by ADP. I have him on 2 of my fantasy teams myself, and had to shift gears. Now, luckily on the one team I had Nick Kurtz, so big drop off, right? But Vladimir Guerrero looks like, again, that he's going to be okay, but keep an eye on that as well. I don't think anything will come of it. Rockies outfielder Mickey Moniak hit the 10-day disabled list on Friday with right ankle tendonitis. He'd been kind of fighting that for a few days, but his performance had really hit the skids, so the Rockies are going to give him a chance to heal up and come back healthy. He's been a bit of a surprise this season. He was taken 289th overall in drafts, right? So free for all intents and purposes. But he has been a top 30 outfield option in scoring leagues, and that makes him a starter. 10-team league or higher, 3 outfielders or 4 outfielders in some formats, even more if you're using outfielders in your utility. He's been a starter all season, taken 289th overall. Now, he's given you good numbers in home runs. He's given you good numbers in RBIs. He's given you a pretty good batting average. So he's got some multi-category help there for your roto lineups. And I just told you he's been a top 30 option in scoring leagues, points to points leagues. So he's only rostered in just over 50% of ESPN leagues. Normally, we don't try to talk about guys, unless they're, either underowned, severely underowned. And then we'll tell you to pick them up on the waivers, or if everybody has them, then everybody wants to know the news. But Mickey Moniak might still be out there for you. And if you need help in the outfield, you have to add him and stash him on the IL for a while longer. But I think he's a guy that could help you out there. Just going to be laid up here for a week and a half or so. On the mound, Dylan Cease had to come out early with discomfort in his left hamstring during his last start. Now, the Blue Jays didn't initially signal it was anything serious, but as of Monday, they were, in fact, waiting on an MRI to make a decision on their course of action with Dylan Cease. Now, Cease, of course, a frontline starter in fantasy as well as in real life. He's been battling Jacob Mezorowski of my Brewers for the league lead in Ks. So keep an eye on his situation. It's his left hammy. Okay, so it's his landing leg when he follows through on his delivery, but hopefully it sounds like the kind of thing he misses maybe a turn or two in the rotation at most, and then hopefully can manage it there. But Dylan Cease, keep an eye on that hamstring. Now let's get some more positive news going here, right? Now I wanted to take a look at some guys who were especially hot last week and raise a toast to their performances. So let's start here with Ketel Marte. Okay, he was outstanding this past week. He led the league with 11 runs scored and 4 home runs, and he batted .536 for the week, which, again, led the league, not a shock. Ketel Marte performing like the top 3 option at his position we were all expecting on draft day and hoping for, and then some, right? I mean, it's helping him a little bit to make up for a cold stretch he had right before that of 16 games without a home run, but Ketel Marte on a heater. Get him in your lineups. Use him in DFS. You want Ketel Marte. You want pieces of that right now. Another hot bat last week, Ryan Waldschmidt, rookie outfielder, scored 8 runs. And that trailed only Marte in the league. Stole a league best 4 bases last week. And since they called him up, he's got a slash line of 353, 411, 471. Looking pretty good for a rookie. Looking as advertised. He's still looking for his first home run, but he is starting to assert himself as a fantasy option. So could be still out there on your waiver wire as well if you're looking for some outfield help and willing to take a shot on a guy, but he's performed well in just a few short weeks here. Elsewhere in the league, hey, the Contreras brothers had a nice week. They ranked 5th and 6th in batting average for the week in the entire league. I'll talk a little bit more about Willson later, but little brother William for my brew crew just keeps rolling right along. He's hitting over 300. He's scoring runs as the number 3 hitter in that Milwaukee lineup between Bryce Turang and Christian Yelich. So he's got protection, plus he's got ducks on the pond with Jackson Chourio and Bryce Turang hitting in front of him. Top of that Milwaukee lineup. You want shares of that right now. Trust me. And that's not just because I'm a Milwaukee fan, folks, but William and Willson both had a great week last week. Pitching wise, hey, I told you about Dylan Cease's injury, but otherwise he was having himself a nice week. He struck out a league best 17 before he had to leave Sunday's game. Max Meyer and JT Ginn were right behind him there with 14 strikeouts apiece last week. In the reliever core, Cade Smith, 4 saves last week. That week for Cade Smith would rank him 25th in the league on the year, and that's what he pulled off just last week. He's certainly living up to his end of the bargain there for his managers as you took him in the top 3 of relievers in fantasy drafts this spring. Now, how about Yoshinobu Yamamoto with a 1.29 ERA for the week, including victimizing my Brewers? He just continues to look like an ace. Even on the same team as Shohei, Yoshinobu Yamamoto looks like an ace there. And hey, speaking of my Brewers, I'm going to bring it up. I know you're probably sick of hearing me talk about these guys, but Kyle Harrison, a .43 whip on the week. That brings his season total down to 1.07. I told you last week, folks, he's good. He and Henderson both deserve roster slots. Harrison looks like he could be a star in the making for Milwaukee behind Miz and Brandon Woodruff, and right there with Logan Henderson, Brandon Sproat in that rotation. But let's look ahead to week 9, shall we? On the interesting schedule front, the Orioles, the White Sox, the Pirates, and the Rangers all have 7 home games this week. And that is especially good news for Pirates managers. The Pirates hit 57 points better at home than their season average on OPS. Now that's a big number, folks. That's like Coors Field type big numbers, right? And on top of that now, for the week, Pirates 7 games at home and 7 right-handed starting pitchers that they're scheduled to face as currently laid out there. They're a top 10 team. They're a top 10 offense versus right-handers this season. So you combine the fact that they hit that much better at home. They're a top 10 team already against right-handers. They are playing for something in that Central Division. They're making it tough on the top teams there. They're looking to become one of those top teams. Fire them up in your lineups in all formats, DFS and everything else. You can get betting. Heck yeah. Throw some Pirates in your parlays this week and bring home the booty, right? The Rangers, on the other hand, actually hit significantly worse at home, though. So even though they have 7 games at home, you'd think, oh, yeah, home field advantage. No, be aware of that with the Rangers. They have been a disappointing offense overall, but they've been especially bad at Globe Life Field, which, again, runs contrary to what you would think. But Texas also faces all right-handed pitchers this week, and that is much better news for them if you do have any Rangers in your lineups there. They are much better against right-handed pitchers, but that still only makes them about a league average play once the two cancel each other out this week. So don't expect much home cooking from the Rangers this week here. We do have a trio of good offenses with an even more favorable than usual schedule this week, though, as Cincinnati and Atlanta both get to face 4 left-handed starting pitchers this week. And that's a positive thing in general, usually in a right-handed heavy league. But you look at the Reds, they have an OPS of 706 overall. They've been a pretty average offense on the season. They've had some bright spots. They've had some slumps like everybody else, but pretty league average offense. That OPS jumps to 758 against left-handers, though. So keep an eye on their opponent throughout the week and get them in your DFS lineups when they're facing Southpaws this week. And I don't mean to tell you to start your Yankees You don't need me to tell you that. But they have a monstrous 884 OPS against left-handers this season, and they get to face 3 left-handed pitchers this week. So again, keep an eye on Yankees and be willing to spend up a little bit for them in your DFS lineups, because they all kind of, protect each other and all kind of serve it up for each other. So get them fired up there in DFS. Now, I mentioned we were going to talk about 2-star pitchers, and there are quite a few of them this week. Actually, it's a very, very good week, for 2-start pitchers. There's a lot of stars, and there are also some streaming options here on tap. So, of the 2-start guys, I want to talk about 3 who are pretty lightly owned, but I think that they face neutral to positive matchups in both of their starts. That's Sean Burke, Ketel Montero, and Spencer Miles. Okay. Now, Burke and the White Sox get to face the Twins early in the week, and that's nice in and of itself, but then they get the Tigers at home over the weekend. Now, the Tigers have been pretty underwhelming as a team overall. This offense has been bad, but they, come on. They get to see the light-hitting Angels early this week before that short trip to Chicago to face the White Sox. So, Ketel Montero, heck yeah, that's looking good for him. And Spencer Miles, he gets to fish at home on Tuesday. He gets to face the Marlins at home, but then they travel to Baltimore for crab cakes this coming weekend. So Sean Burke, Ketel Montero, and Spencer Miles, 3 guys that I like, even though they're lightly owned, because I think those matchups will be, like I said, neutral to positive for all 3 of those gentlemen. You might be tempted by Jack Kokonowitz if you see him out there on your wire, based on the fact that he's got a Tuesday matchup with the Tigers. But listen, he has to face the Rays in Tampa this weekend on the road. So the Rays have been good. I shouldn't need to tell you that. And Jack Kokonowitz is still finding himself as a big leaguer. So I'm avoiding that matchup if I can. If you want to stream him against the Tigers Tuesday, be my guest. But other than that, you look elsewhere for points. Now, finally, before we wrap things up, let's look at a couple possible waiver ads. Okay. Now, I'll have an article up here, as of Tuesday on fantasybaseball.advice.com. I'm going to have more on waiver pickups, but let's talk about a few guys before we call last call here. Okay. So first off, I said I'd talk about him earlier, but Willson Contreras is making some waves at first base for Boston. Entering this week, he had 11 home runs, 33 RBIs. He was batting .281. Now, I'm not going to pretend to be giddy excited about Willson Contreras at 34 years old. Last week, I kind of told you about Nolan Arenado. I'm sure that, frustrated a lot of people, but hey, I practice what I preach. I honestly picked him up, and I'm playing him on one of my fantasy lineups this week. But the facts are, Willson Contreras, 34 years old. He's old news, but he's playing good baseball right now without any of the underlying metrics looking, all that out of place versus his career averages. He's not really doing anything he hasn't done in the past. His launch angle is up around 15 degrees right now, which is close to a career high for a season. But that's kind of a pattern we've seen with him for almost the last 4 years. His launch angle has been up for the last 4 years over what it had been for the first decade or so of his career. So he's only owned in about 30% of ESPN leagues right now. So if you find yourself in a bind at first base, or, you need a utility fill-in or whatever, he is worth a look there. Another guy at first base that I think you should look at would be Jonathan Aranda of the Rays. Now, here's another guy with multi-category juice for you to pick up if you're struggling at first, if you're in a roto league. He's tied for 6th in the league in RBIs, not 6th among, first base, 6th in the league. But he's also got 8 home runs, and he's hitting .265, and he's got 28 runs scored. So honestly, he's not going to hurt you in any of those categories. If you need an RBI boost, he's your man. And like I said, he's going to contribute positively above league averages in those other 3 categories. The only downside to both of these guys, really, actually, Contreras, and Aranda, is that they're both only eligible at first base, most likely in your leagues. So you may be limiting yourself a bit in terms of lineup versatility if you pick them up. But honestly, that's not all that uncommon for first baseman anyway. First baseman generally maybe overlap with outfield and maybe overlap with DH. Occasionally you get a guy with catcher, as Willson Contreras was last year. But, like I said, that's not uncommon for first base. So I would look both of those directions if I had a need at the corner out or infield position. Now, as far as pitchers go, I talked about, some 2-start streamers this week that we could pick up, but how about one more name for you real quick, and that's Foster Griffin. Foster Griffin had 2 wins in 2 starts last week, best in the league. 2 starts, he won them both. This week, only 1 start, but it is against the Padres, and they rank below the league average in a whole slew of categories. They've been a pretty disappointing and lackluster offense in San Diego there. Now, Griffin has 6 wins on the season and 60 Ks. His ERA and his WHIP are both better than league averages. So, for the 4 starting pitcher categories in most roto leagues, like I just said, wins, Ks, ERA, and WHIP, he's a respectable option actually in all 4 of those. He's only owned in about a third of ESPN leagues. So, you can give him a look this week as well, because with all of those stats and with the 60 Ks comes points. Plain and simple. So whether you're in a roto league, category league, or if you're in a points, head-to-head league, I think Foster Griffin is a name that's worth looking at. And that's going to do it here for us on Straight to the Chase. Now, a reminder real quick to check out the FSAN channel on YouTube. That's the Fantasy Sports Advice Network. Once you're there, click on that blue baseball logo and find all of our baseball video content. Remember to like us, subscribe to us, hit those notifications. You can look up Straight to the Chase on your favorite podcast app, and please go to podchaser.com, search for Straight to the Chase, and leave us a 5-star review. Then get yourself over to fantasybaseballadvice.com, where you'll find all my baseball content there, podcasts and articles. Sign yourself up for a Pro Plus membership. You're going to get access to all of our articles, rankings, video content for football, basketball, baseball. You're going to get access to Sellout Crowds. That's our all sports, only sports social media app where you can connect with other fantasy sports enthusiasts and content creators. Both myself and everybody else from the Fantasy Baseball Advice Network will be on there as well. Pro Plus members get our rookie guide. They get 10% off and free shipping on all orders out of the FSAN shop. And you're going to get yourself automatic entry into a Jersey Prize League. Again, that's included with Pro Plus membership at fantasybaseballadvice.com. You can follow me personally everywhere at STTChaseFFB on the social medias. But until next time, everybody, we are going to get up, get out of here, gone.
We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to FantasySportsAdvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to FantasySportsAdvice.com today.